Hi everyone, my name is Rob and I want to welcome you to another episode of Our Avrame Home. And in today's video, I want to answer a question that we've had a lot of people asking us, and it's why do we choose to live in such a remote part of the world? Well, today I want to answer that question for you. Let's get into today's video. All right, in no particular order, here are some of the reasons why we chose to live so remote the way we do. The first one is for the freedom that we get from having our neighbors so much further than us, is we can make as much noise as we want to. And so we've got a really loud livestock guardian dog. He barks so much, and if we lived in town, that just wouldn't be fair to the neighbors, wouldn't be fair to him if we tried to make him be quiet. And so that's one of the things we love, is just being out in the middle of nowhere. We can make as much noise as we want, and we're not worried about bothering any of our neighbors. Another reason why we chose to live as remotely as we did is because of the ability to hunt. Now, we do not hunt yet. We are going through the process now to be able to legally be allowed to hunt here in Canada. Right now, we don't yet, but we have the opportunity to, because we are surrounded by thousands of acres of forest with deer and moose and bear roaming throughout it. And so while we don't hunt yet, we really we like that opportunity to be able to hunt in the future. Another thing that we really value about living so remotely is privacy. Yes, we do have neighbors on both sides of our driveway. There's another driveway with neighbors, but we appreciate that what we do on our homestead and our land, other than what we show on YouTube here, is for our family. And so we really value having the ability to have that type of privacy that we didn't have when we lived in the city. Now, with privacy in mind, there's also another factor that we really appreciate about remote living, where we live at least, and that's a really good neighborly mindset. Everyone out here is doing remote living. Not everyone's homesteading, but everyone's living out here in the middle of nowhere, and there's times when we need help. There's been times where the cars slid off the road into the ditch, and we put up a notice on social media and say, hey, can anyone come? And people just show up with their trucks and their chains to pull us out of the ditch. We've also had times where we need someone to watch on the animals, or maybe we're running late, or we're visiting someone further away and we have to spend an extra night. We just call in the neighbors and say, hey, can you come water the animals? Can you make sure that the house is okay? And so having that neighborly mindset of knowing that there's other people out here who are also living remotely, where we need to rely on one another, is something that wasn't as present when we lived in the city. Yeah, there were neighbors there, but you almost didn't need to rely on each other. But we love the fact that out here, you have to rely on one another, and we all kind of pitch in to help each other out. Another aspect that we really love about the remote living out here is that you don't really have to follow a community aesthetic. So when we lived in town, there were basically on our street like 4 different styles of home that you would live in, because it was a subdivision and the houses were all built by the same builder and they all looked pretty much the exact same. Well, out here, when you're living remote, you can build whatever you want as long as it follows the engineering specifics and the zoning requirements for your area. But we don't feel like we have to fit a cookie cutter type of home, or homestead for that matter. So we really appreciate that about living remotely. We can basically do whatever we want and make our house look however we want it to look, which is why the A-frame was something that was so easy for us to choose to do. And the last aspect of rural remote living that I want to mention is the fact that because we are living in a rurally zoned area of Ontario, Canada, that means that we are able to do different things on the homestead that we couldn't if we lived inside the confines of a town. And so because we're rural, that means that we're allowed to have livestock, and we can run our homestead in different ways than we wouldn't be able to in the city. So I know in the city, they're gonna have requirements like, we definitely would not have a dairy cow. We absolutely would not. Our dog would also be required to be quiet during certain hours, which, I mean, isn't possible now with the breed of dog that we have. Certain bylaws will dictate how many chickens you can own. We know some friends who live in a city where they're allowed to have chickens, but only 1 per member of the family. And certain requirements like that, they don't apply to us here because we are zoned a rural area. And so for that reason as well, because we didn't only want to have an A-frame, we wanted to have a homestead, living rurally and remote was the only way that we could do that. Well, those are some of the reasons why we chose to live remotely for our family. We know that it's not for everyone. We have friends and family who come to visit, and they'll say, why is your driveway so long? You can see it, part of it behind me here. They'll ask, like, why do you have so many animals? How do you do all those chores before you go to work in the morning? Well, we're doing it because the remote living was something we wanted for our family. We wanted our kids to be able to experience the great outdoors like this, surrounded by thousands of acres of forest. We wanted our kids to be able to understand where their food comes from, and we wanted to make sure that we knew it was coming from healthy sources. And we wanted to make sure that as a family, we could have the experience and the adventure of turning a wild forest into a place for our family to call home. And so for all those reasons and many more, that's why we chose such a remote area of the world to live in. And yeah, who knows? Maybe you're thinking of a place to live too. Maybe you have some questions about that. Please leave them in the comments below. If you have any questions about what it's like to live so remote, so much in the middle of nowhere, let us know in the comments and we will get back to you. But yeah, that's it for today's video. We'll see you next time.